Hello everyone, today we will look at the 12 Transcendental Etudes by Liszt and rank them based on their difficulty. These etudes are a great challenge of technique, musical understanding, and test many abilities of pianists, such as the raw strength but also interpretational ideas and abilities to create many different sound colors in even just one etude. While each etude still has a core technical challenge to the pianist, if we compare the Liszt etudes to, for example, Chopin etudes, we see that the technical elements are not as strict as with Chopin, so we often have a blend of many different techniques. Still, of course, there is a basic theme or motive that is carried throughout each Liszt etudes, just he combines usually more technical motives than, for example, compared to Chopin. I will now rank the 12 etudes based on their difficulty. Specifically, I mean technical difficulty, although I will of course also take into account their musical challenge and interpretational challenge. However, I lean towards the technical difficulty here. Please note that none of these etudes are really easy, so this is just a relative list of difficulty. I will start at the easiest and then go to the hardest etudes. So the easiest piece is the first one called Preludio, and it's really more of an introduction or opening to the etudes. We have some runs in the right hand, followed by a big crescendo here and some arpeggios, and in the left hand you mainly have the accented notes. Really, it's not too much of a technical challenge. Of course, doesn't mean it's easy. As I said, none of these pieces are easy, but still this is for me the easiest Liszt etude. Then we have the third etude, which is Paysage, and this is a very beautiful piece. Paysage means landscape, and that's what we have here with this etude. It's a scenic landscape, beautiful landscape that we need to paint, so it's more of interpretational and musical work. The whole piece is based on chords, as you can see. We have also octaves and some good contrasts in color. And you of course need to make these changes very obvious, with the subito piano and the nice crescendos and the dolcissimo, as you can see here. So really it's about contrasts with this piece, and also you will need to work on individual voicing. What I mean by that is you will have chords and octaves and need to bring out a specific voice, which is going to be a bit of a challenge. So this is mainly about voicing and just playing chords and playing them in an interesting way, and also playing them with a full sound, and later of course with a, for example, subito dolce piano. So this is really a challenge about contrasts. Vision is the number 6, and the main theme of this etude, as you can see here, is the arpeggios, and of course we also have the double octaves here in both hands. Those are going to be the main challenges here. You will also probably need to either roll some chords, or if you have a smaller hand it can be tricky for you, but this is very doable for someone who has a bit of a larger hand. And in case you do have a smaller hand, you can just roll or split or come up with your own solution here. So this piece is again very scenic piece. As with all Liszt etudes, basically you need to do a lot of contrasts, and the main focus here of difficulty will be the octaves and all these arpeggios. Then we have the number 9, Ricordanza. It's a very long piece, about 9 to 11 minutes depending on the tempo. As you can see, it's one of the largest Liszt etudes. The melody is repeated and variated many times. Technical challenges include octaves, arpeggios, and jumps. And of course, there is sort of an added difficulty of making an interesting interpretation of the 10-minute long piece. This is kind of an own challenge in itself, of performing a piece that is that long and making it interesting and keeping all the important information and presenting it well. So this is mainly the challenge with this piece, also because the theme repeats so often. Then we have the etude number 7 called Eroica, and this is a very theatrical etude. that is mainly focused on octaves if we're talking about the technical element. So the difficulty of this piece is hitting the right octaves, of course, the jumps and positioning your hand in the correct way, and also picking up the speed. Basically, it's going to be a challenge. You have to get the octaves to a certain speed. And of course, with such an epic piece as the Eroica, there needs to be a certain storytelling ability with the performer to make this etude more than just a boring compilation of octaves. The etude number 2 doesn't have a title, so it's mostly referred to just molto vivace, which is the tempo indication, and Busoni actually nicknamed this etude Rockets. It's a 2-minute piece, has very fast octaves, chords, intervals that are split and alternated in both hands. So that's kind of the main theme with this piece. It's quite a challenge technically. Also you have jumps, and it's more complex, and the runs are a bit more challenging than in previous etudes. But of course you have a bit of less musical challenge or interpretational work to do in this piece. Then we have another piece that doesn't have an official name here, but we have the tempo indication Allegro agitato molto. It's also commonly nicknamed the Appassionata etude. It's a very popular piece due to the nature of the composition, very passionate and very gripping melodies, and also flashy enough to make it a proper virtuoso concert piece and a great encore. So in these 5 minutes that the etude usually takes to perform, we have a nice balance between left and right, as you can see here, while the left hand usually delivers the technical challenges, as you can see, all these arpeggios that are going around, and the right hand takes the melody really. So it's, I think, fair to compare this in a way to the revolutionary etude, the Opus 10 number 12 by Chopin, which also has kind of the same theme, with the left hand having a difficult and complex accompaniment, and the right hand stealing the show with the beautiful melody. Then we have another very popular piece and super beautiful, one of my favorites. It's Harmonies du soir, and which translates to Harmonies of the evening. We have mainly broken chords and very intricate harmonies that are the theme of this piece. Also, of course, chords and octaves like always, and also jumps, repeated octaves, repeated chords. The piece can be really regarded as an orchestral piece that is kind of transcribed to the piano. So you need to bring out a lot of different colors, and only a skilled pianist can really make it beautiful. So it's really a challenge on that level, and making these, big orchestral crescendi and bringing out so many colors and making it sound grandiose is very difficult. It's a whole complete new level on that kind of aspect, and it's also one of the longest etudes, which of course makes it hard. Wilde Jagd, which is the 8th etude, pictures a hunting scene, because translated from German it just means wild hunt, and that's really what it feels like to play this piece. There are so many different technical aspects, but mainly the piece revolves around chords and fast octaves and runs. So the piece requires a certain amount of physical raw strength. As you can see here, already from the start, we have this triple forte, and you really need endurance and strength to make this piece work. But at the same time, you need to be very selective with your power, and how you deliver this kind of power takes a lot of control. So this etude almost feels like we're the ones being chased in this wild hunt, and of course add the fast tempo to that, and you have a very difficult piece. Now we're entering our top 3, and on the 3rd place we have Mazeppa, and this is really a piece of epic proportions. It's inspired by poems of Victor Hugo's Les Orientales, and yeah, you can just imagine the whole scene because it's beautifully composed, and you can really imagine being dragged on that horse like Mazeppa was. So we have fast scales, fast runs, Furs that are split into both hands and need to be seamless. That is quite challenging. Also, we have just a very long piece with a beautiful middle section, which has to bring out the left hand melodies, and so many stark contrasts that happen in this 8-minute piece really make the pianist showcase many different techniques and also endurance, also being able to tell a story, because of course this is inspired by Victor Hugo's poem, so we need to make it like an orchestral kind of sound and just tell a story throughout. So this piece is really difficult, as are all of these top 3 etudes, and really choosing which one is the hardest is almost a personal preference at this point. Then on the second place we have Chasse-neige, and that's the snowstorm. So it most prominently features almost endless tremolos that work their way through harmonies just throughout the whole piece. But not only do you need the endurance to play these tremolos for a long time, but you also need to make a separation between the melody and the accompaniment, and that's really no easy task in many places. So it's about being selective but also having the raw endurance, and especially when you have this in piano. I mean, in forte it's more manageable, but doing it in piano is really a whole other kind of challenge. So it's a lot about control, endurance, timing, and also just a test of how well you can get those tremolos down. So I think this is a very, very difficult piece. To make it sound right is just takes an excellent technique to make it sound right, basically. And then lastly we have the number 5 Feux follets. So this is widely considered to be the hardest Liszt etude. You might argue that some of the previous ones like Chasse-neige or Mazeppa can be harder. It really depends how well you can do those double notes. So basically this piece is famously difficult, and many pianists agree on it being the hardest Liszt etude, maybe even not only Liszt etudes but also from other composers. So as I said, the main difficulty here is the double notes, which can be compared in a way to the 25/6 etude by Chopin, although this is a larger interval, which makes it a bit more awkward. So if you have thirds, it's a bit more comfortable, I think, personally. One thing about this etude is that the tempo is often misunderstood. I mean, you have people playing this at 150, 160, even faster, but it's also written only allegretto, 120 to 126. And this is something that very famously, if you listen to Cifra's recording, of course, he was an excellent pianist, he's actually one of the few people that really played in the tempo that is written, and it has a whole different character. So this is not kind of a speed test of how fast you can play this. This is allegretto and a whole different kind of character to this piece, which of course makes it more manageable, but the difficulty is still there, of course, because not only the double notes, but the whole piece also has other technical challenges, which are manageable for a very good pianist. Most pianists who are pros will mainly, if the piece works or not, will mainly depend on the double notes. It will not depend on the runs, which are definitely more manageable. And definitely for me, the hardest etude is the Feux follets. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and subscribe if you want more content like this.